to an actuarial student to say maybe things you should do or things you shouldn't do, or maybe just a form of encouragement, just to kind of end off our discussion?
I always share this. I've shared this video with a few students. It's a video by Jay Shetty, and you can have a look at it on YouTube. Jay Shetty's video on pressure, and he speaks about how when you leave school, that's the only thing that you're going to do together. Your journey from there is going to be different. So everybody,
that's where we start diverging from each other.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. And the students I find it so caught up in the fact that I'm enrolled for a 4-year degree, I have to finish it in 4 years.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't pan out that way. And life doesn't pan out that way. You don't know what's going to happen along the way. And you also need to realize that you've been through 12 years of schooling. Consistently, right? Every year you've been to school, and now you're coming for another 4 years. And so sometimes your brain needs a break.
Yeah.
And I find that some students don't understand, like in your first year or in your second year, they have mental breakdowns.
Yeah.
And they keep pushing through. But sometimes it's God's way of saying to you, you actually just need to take a break. And we've seen students throughout the years go on leave of absence for a semester, for a year.
So fine.
Come back and flourish.
Because they took their time.
Because they took their time, and they took that time to do things for themselves and do something that is self-enrichment.
Yeah.
So
and also maybe just learn a bit about themselves,
Exactly.
right? Like what it is that they want, and also what's important.
What's important. Yeah.
I think sometimes when you do step back and you give yourself a break, you can sometimes just get a bit of perspective and clarity as to what it is exactly that you are building or investing your time in.
True. And I think the word pressure is so huge. And it can be such a burden on you.
And often with actuarial students, what I've seen is the pressure is self-pressure.
Totally.
Like there's pressure, there is also pressure from other parties, and I'm not negating that. But it's like this like I need to do this, and this is what is expected of me from me. Like this is the standard and the type of person I want to be. And I'm like, but you're 18, you don't even know what type of person you are, kind of thing. You know? These things you learn progressively over your life, and you also need to, I think, apply some grace to yourself.
Yeah.
In those instances.
One thing also that I like to mention is like a lot of the times the students come in conversations with me, and the first thing I would ask them would be, so what are you doing for fun? And then look at me like,
I know.
Mad.
Yeah, they're like, is that a trick question?
Fun? No, we don't do anything for fun. And I'm like, no, you have to do something for fun.
You have to.
It's all about the balance. They need to create a balance for themselves. I always say you need to work hard, but you also need to play hard. It's important
and rest hard.
Because the playing hard resets your brain.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying play hard in the sense of party hard and go to a festival, but finding something that you're going to do where you don't think about varsity work.
Yeah.
And so I also try and enlighten them, because some of them stay in dress.
Yes. And they don't necessarily know what else there is on campus for them to do.
Absolutely. And so we have Joby shuttles, and there's one that goes all the way to town, to Ealing.
Yes.
And if you get off the shuttle, you can actually walk through the company gardens, which is such a nice walk.
Yeah,
there's squirrels around.
Yeah,
there's galleries.
Yeah, some fresh air, something different.
Markets, and just get back on the shuttle and come all the way back to campus here, wherever you stay. And it's not going to cost you anything because you're using your student card. It's just a safety aspect that I always warn them about. And lots of students have actually done that and come back to me. So when I recommend something to the students, I always say to them, come back to me and
tell
check
me, report back. Yeah. How did you find it?
Good. They do it and they love it.
Yeah.
And it's something that they then implement.
Yeah. And they realize the importance of it and how much of sort of like a relief it was just to do
absolutely
something other than say.
And they'll say that, Shoo, thank you so much for that. I didn't realize that going out with my friend for coffee or going out with my friend for ice cream, I would I would not feel bad about. Because that's the thing, right? They end up feeling bad for taking a break.
Yeah.
And you should not do that.
That's true. You feel guilty for doing it. Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
So that's also important for them. And I want every student to remember that. And even every person that's listening to this podcast, remember that you need a balance.
Yeah.
And I share my juggling ball theory with the students also. And this is what got me through my studies. So I take it back to my studies and how I took
personal experiences.
You said to me, you asked me, how did you juggle?
Yeah, I mean, you had young kids. Yeah,
I had kids. I had work. I started to go back and do work.
Yeah.
So it was kids, it's my husband, it's work, it's friends. I miss friends' weddings. I ended up just going to the reception.
Yeah.
And so I built this theory in my mind. So like I told you, I'm very creative.
Yeah.
So I visualize things. So I visualized it.
Draw it though.
I kind of thinking about it.
Use PowerPoint.
I actually do have a PowerPoint slide on it. I shared it with the orientation students last year.
I actually do remember that. I remember that.
So it's different juggling balls, and I kind of code them. So maybe family is yellow, which is for and then green would be like work and so on. And you would imagine that I would have a gold plate, like an actual gold plate in front of me. And whatever ball is on my plate at the moment, that is what I need to give 100% to.
Yeah, so you can't be giving, or you can't be splitting your energy, because then you kind of like are all over the place. You need to kind of say, okay, I'm here right now, this is my ball, and then we focus on this ball, and then move on to the next one.
And actually just physically, mentally give 100% to it. And park everything else.
Yeah.
And like I said to the students, when you leave the campus ball at home. Leave the campus ball at campus.
Yeah.
And go home. And when you're home and you're engaging with your family, do that.
Yeah.
Have your family ball. And have fun with them. Because you can't constantly keep thinking about, that test that I did and I didn't get the mark that I wanted.
Yeah. So it's like you're in a specific situation, but your mind is elsewhere.
Completely.
Yeah.
And it takes training. It's not.
It does because our lives are complex, right? And it's difficult to, especially if it's a negative experience or it's a stress for you. It's difficult to put that away because it kind of weighs on you. But you also just need to. I think that helps with perspective.
Yes.
Right. Yes, a tough test went badly, but it's a tough test. You know, your family are important. Something that Kelly actually said to me the other day. She says that there's plastic balls and there's glass balls. And your families are like those glass balls. You don't want to drop the glass ball because they shatter. Sure. But there's plastic balls, which is probably like a touch test. It drops sometimes, and you know what? It bounces back. And the ramifications of it being dropped are not much. But there's certain glass balls that you can't drop, and they're the ones that you should focus your attention on, because those are the ones that are irreplaceable.
And to that point, Margie, there's always a lesson in everything.
Yeah.
And as long as you learn the lesson, you'll be fine, because you won't do it again. Or you'll switch things up.
Yeah. Or you should. Hopefully, you should. Hopefully, you're making the same mistake over and over again. In that case, maybe you catch a wake-up call. But you're right. Yeah. But it is, I think, very difficult when you're young. And when you do have this sort of perspective or this view of what life should be like. And then when it doesn't go that way, it is difficult to recalibrate. I think that's difficult at any age.
True.
But I think as you get older, you realize that things are more complex than you initially thought. And you kind of, it's not that you get used to it, but I think there's an element of where you're like, okay, I expect this to happen, but it's likely that it won't happen. Yeah. And I think that's also an actuarial skill. I mean, that's what we do, right?
Yes.
We predict what's going to happen, and it almost never happens exactly how we want it to or how we expect it to. Like I say to my first years, actuaries are always wrong. Like, because we look forward and we make a prediction. And yes, the prediction can kind of be in the right direction, but it's always wrong in the sense that it's never exactly right. And that's kind of what life is, right? Like, you can set up everything in a specific way, and things can still turn out differently than what you thought they would be. You can't control everything. And so you have to kind of eat the sweet and continue.
But that's the thing. Like, the students need to realize that. They're not in control of everything. Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah. And also I think it takes a bit of pressure off, when you're not trying to control every facet. Because I think when you think that everything is under your control and if anything goes wrong, it's always your fault or whatever, sometimes it is your fault. But it's just a very intense way of living because you're constantly in this like fight mode. And it's actually, it's not sustainable to live like that.
Sure.
And I think that's why people have those mental breakdowns, etc., or struggle mentally or with that level of resilience, because we're not actually, we can't exist that way.
Yeah.
We're not designed to exist under immense pressure for long periods of time.
Yes.
And if that is how you're living, you need to relook at your priorities, because you're going to run yourself into the ground.
Yeah. And I think what's important there is that you need to overcome that fear of failure.
Oh, good. Go. Say it out of position and send it back.
Overcome that fear of failure.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And there's meds for it, eh? There's homeopathic meds for it.
I think we just saying you should drag yourself.
No, it's not my man. I said homeopathic.
But it's a life skill. It's a life skill. It's the reality of it. And I think that is an underplayed life skill. I was actually chatting to my boyfriend about this the other day, and saying that it's still something I struggle with. It's still something that I'm like, when I fail, I need to kind of go back to my basics and be like, okay, you failed. What can you learn from this? Exactly what you're saying. What can I learn from this? What can I do to not do this again?
Yeah.
And then let it go.
Exactly.
Don't play it over and over again, so that, when I'm sitting having dinner with my family, I'm in my mind being like, I am the failure. And it's like, it's then coming into the way that I'm engaging with the people around me. But it's something you have to practice, like exactly like you said. You don't all of a sudden just become good at failing. No. it's not something that
you should become professional failure. Then you need to change your career direction.
Yeah, but I mean, you're right. But I think failing is good for us.
No, absolutely. And that's what I have engaged a lot with this year, in first years, across the board. And like I said to you, my son was in matric last year. So a lot of family and friends, you work at UCT, oh, can you help this one? This one's applying, and how can you help, So you end up like learning different things about the university too.
Yes.
And requirements for degrees. And coming into commerce, you need pure maths.
Yeah.
So you can't do this degree, or you can't do any commerce degree without pure maths. And the students didn't do well. Some of the students did not do well at the end of the year. So they didn't get into the degree they wanted to study.
Yeah.
And for actuarial science students specifically, you guys are the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
You were the names in the newspaper, shaking the maize and having lunch with top ministers because you were there in your matric year. And so coming to university and your first maths test you fail, you feel like your world is crashing. It's coming down on you. And it's actually not. It's then starting to learn to deal with the fear of failure.
Yeah.
And the quicker you learn, the sooner you do it, the better it's going to be for you.
Yeah.
So read books about it. There's lots of podcasts about it. There's lots of things on YouTube. What's that other thingy? TikTok. I can certainly say I did not download TikTok yet.
I think I'm too old for that.
Although it is one of the most
used platforms. Yeah, it's very used. Very, very used. But I think that those are lots of valuable insights. And I just want to say thank you also for being on the podcast. I think something that I have wanted to do in the podcast is we're trying to unpack the world of actuarial science. And I think the world of actuarial science is so much more than just actuaries.
Yeah.
And I think someone like you who plays an immense support role in a system where we are trying to educate young actuaries can't be emphasized enough. So thank you very much for being on the podcast.
It's a pleasure.
And thank you for being part of our team.
I love this team. I love this team. This is the best team I've ever worked with.
You make an amazing
And I'm not just saying that.
And thank you for always having sweets.
And we eat a lot. I love the eating.
Yeah, we eat a lot. Yeah, I loved it a lot. That's why we have to walk to our lectures, speed walk to our lectures.
But thank you, Margie. Thank you for the opportunity to chat and give you a little bit of insight into me and my journey with the students, which I love. I love. The best part of my job is graduation.
I know, it's really special.
I just love it. I love it when the parents are screaming at the top of their lungs.
And you're like,